say that again.
Am I lagging / frozen?
Slightly. I didn't know if it was me
Yeah.
though. Okay. Well,
Okay.
so that was a great start. So welcome everybody to today's What the Tech. Meredith is in a deep, deep quandary right now. She's frozen on her
I'm
thinking.
frozen.
You look very thoughtful, though.
That's right. Thinking real hard.
Have we all now seen Meredith's teacher face? Like, this is what kids get when Senora Blanco's not happy. Anyways, okay, so hello, thank you. Sorry, we're recording this because our love affair with Microsoft Teams continues, and I tried to reschedule and it canceled and made all of things do all of the bad stuff. So you'll get this as an asynchronous recording. Thank you / I'm sorry and welcome. All right, so today we're language teachers, obviously, and Angela's with us. She's a rehabilitated language teacher who has moved to the tech side. Although I feel a little bit left out, you and Meredith over there rocking the computer stuff, and here I am, all day, every day.
We'll get you one day. We'll get you one day.
I don't know. You just threw out some
It comes
letters
for the best
before
of
we
us.
started recording, and I was like, I don't even know what those letters mean.
We'll teach you. We'll teach you all the things you need. I think Meredith left to try to get back on with her camera.
Probably. Whatever. We know she's gonna go play with the puppies. I mean, come on now. Yeah, you'll probably hear Meredith's puppies if she comes back in, and we have been oogling over the dogs. So today, because we're all language teachers in some form or fashion, we want to talk to you about technology for the different communicative modes. And double check me, Angela, can you still see my Canvas screen?
Sure can.
Look, there's Meredith. Because I know early on in my career, I don't know about you, Angela, but like every time someone's like, ooh, there's this new tech tool, ooh, there's this new cool thing. Hey, Meredith. We just told everyone about your puppies, that you were going to leave us to go play with puppies. Oh, do I need to modify the settings again?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. So like when we started really seeing a huge amount of technology, not just like, oh, the kids who have phones in your class, let them use it. My constant question was, okay, so this is great and this is a cool tool, but how do I use it for language learning? And I don't mean a Quizlet set to practice vocabulary, because that's not what we do in our language classrooms. So every time we talk about something technology, my mind immediately goes to, how would that work in a CI classroom? How would that work in like an acquisition classroom? How are teachers being boondoggled into using this thing and it's not what they should be doing pedagogically, right? So those are always my guiding questions as a language teacher. So we decided we were going to sort of like talk about it today, language in the different modes. Not going to lie, can't remember some of the things that I put on here, might struggle today. It has been so I always start with interpretive mode. Meredith switched me over to this, everyday IPA type of thing. And like I live and breathe 3 modes now every day. It is time for interpretive. It is time for, so this is how my brain works. I start with interpretive. So the question is, how do we use tech for reading and listening? Because that's what the interpretive mode is. What are you going to read? What are you going to listen to? And I'm scrolling, and I was thinking about it, you guys, because we've all been teaching for a little bit. Let's check our gray hairs. There was a time and a place. I've changed parts today. There was a time and a place where we carried around the bag of menus from our Target cultures. We carried around, the used cheese box that you got from your cream cheese. Like everybody had the box, right? Like, oh my gosh, today we're going to talk about trains. Let me pull out all of my train tickets. And the kids are like, the ink is gone. Like, what am I supposed to be reading? Why does it smell funny? So to me, like the biggest takeaway from technology for a language teacher is the immediate access to authentic resources.
Yep.
And I mean, think about, I'm a French teacher, and Angela's a French teacher. Oh my gosh, we outnumber the Spanish teachers for once.
Oh,
success.
It's amazing. Never
I
happens.
know. So when we were growing up and we were in our language classes, all of our culture and French stuff came probably from France. Maybe your teacher went to Montreal once. You get to college or you get out into the real world and like, I'm sorry, what's in Africa? And so now if I'm, if I want to talk about clothing, I am not going to go straight to Coco Chanel. No, I go to La Sap, and we're going to talk about what it means to be a dandy in Africa. We're going to talk about these colorful colors and stuff that I, as a learner, didn't have access to. Wouldn't have access to it now if I didn't have the entire world on a computer. Okay, so that's my spiel.
I've said before, and I said this when people ask me, like, my elevator pitch about how I got to where I am is that as a French teacher, I could not take my students to France every day or even every year. But with technology, I could bring the entire French-speaking world to my students every day. Yes. And that's really part of how I got to where I am now, because if I was going to use it with my students, I had to know what I was talking about. So I had to be able to do the things.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, and some of the most technology proficient and technology confident and technology savvy teachers I know, world language teachers, like, you know, you guys and me, and what, because we've had to be, like you said, Angela, to your point, it's like we've had audio, video, we've had to be creative. And there's culturally not always a ton of buy-in in language classes. So then we've got to be not only like the stuff, but like make it exciting, have some good formatting, like have some, you know, like we've got to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit, maybe more than another content, because we are our programs, and advocacy's kind of baked into everything we do, for better or for worse. And if it starts to be not real, like applicable or useful or easy or enjoyable, then we don't offer that language anymore a lot of times in a lot of places. So we've always had to kind of be the face of, you know, technology, right, and know what we're doing. And it's, you know, it's good, but it's also hard to keep honing that.
Absolutely. And if you don't get anything else out of our session today, the thing that I hope that everyone gets is just start using authentic resources. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're looking for something for, and I, you know, Angela and I, we grew up as non-French speakers, and I mean Meredith too, but like our whole world is, you know, look at the three of us, we're white women, right? Mm-hmm. So use that technology to bring in the voices that you may not have been exposed to already, and like put yourself out there and explore it with kids. If you get nothing else out of today, use it to explore cultures.
Yeah.
And bring new cultures in. All right, so now if we talk about specific stuff. Oh, Meredith, I see you have done some work. Go for it, girl.
Hi. I just put in there some of my favorite things for the interpretive mode. A lot of these overlap. You know, like you can do, and Quizlet's a little bit of a stretch, but it is interpretive. And the fact that you can put, like, one of my favorite Quizlet tricks, if you're doing like a Quizlet into a GIMKit, is only have, let me think what you have to do. Oh, the other side has to only be like 2 options. So if you had like a set, if you're using like a novel or a story, and you have an entire Quizlet set of questions, ¿cómo se llama la personaje principal? You know, whatever. Or no, that's not true, because it has to be yes or no. Or if you had 2 characters, as long as you have 2 terms, and you just make those, like that, the answer. Midas, sorry, speaking of puppies, he literally picked this moment to be like, squeaky toy. I'm like, hello. Yeah, you. If you only have 2 answers that are like the other side of that Quizlet, like that flashcard, the Quizlet set or the GIMKit set or whatever the game is will only generate those 2 buttons. So then it does become kind of like a speed reading kind of a thing, as long as they're not just terms. But the rest are also overlapping in the other modes as well. So lots of good opportunity for reading and listening, and things like Plickers have really kind of kept up with things post COVID. They've got a great online platform where you can insert audio, insert like all these different things.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these. I'm like, oh, I haven't used those since the COVID times. Like Pear Deck. Oh my gosh, what a tool! But when it became something I had to pay for, that tool disappeared. And I mean, you brought up a good point about like modifying Quizlet. Like, I think a lot of people think of a Quizlet as just vocabulary, and certainly it does. But you can also, like, I am a huge fan of logic questions. When we're studying things with the kids, and I'm like, okay, so you broke your arm. You need an aspirin. Is that a logical sentence? And so it's a little bit more than just term to term. You could easily make logic questions. Yes, it's logical. No, it's not logical in a Quizlet. And that's a great review, you know?
Absolutely. And there's your 2 options, like logical, illogical, logical, illogical. And that GIMKit will just give you 2 buttons that say logical, illogical. Those are the only choices.
Meredith, when did that update happen? Because Quizlet didn't used to do that. That's super exciting to me. See, this
That's
is
a good
why I'm
question.
here.
I know for sure I did it in GimKit during COVID, and I think also Quizlet Live, because there's some different version, like games within Quizlet Live that GimKit doesn't have anything close to, and I'm pretty sure it didn't like double them up or anything. Make 2 yeses, make 2 nos. I can't remember. GimKit for sure, because it'll give you 2 blank buttons at the bottom. It'll still give you 4 buttons. 2 of them are nothing. One of them will say like oui, the other one says no, whatever. And so it's really, really nice if you can remember just to do those 2.
Because I used to do exactly what Shannon was saying. I would do things that were like logique, illogique, but I would have to tell them, you can only play these games because otherwise it's not going to work.
Right. And I think it can. I think it worked in Quizlet Live. Now that I think about it, I can't remember. But regardless, it's a good, it's a good set. And like you said, it could be something you do. Yeah. You'd have to play around with it.
And see, my dirty secret is I've never gimkitted, and I don't gimkit. Oh gosh, don't make that.
Is that
I
your
think
dirty? That is a dirty secret.
I think I played it one time, but it was one of those things where like COVID time was like, I gotta learn one more thing. That informative. And I was like, nope, drawn a line. I'm done. And I know they're like Meredith's favorite. So
You don't
like,
use formative either. You're like
Um,
stabbing Meredith through the heart.
I know. Never have I ever had the funding for it. And I have tried formative like 3 times. And every single time I text my friend Robin and I'm like, I do not like I tried. I gave it a really good effort. And I was like, I can figure out how to do all the things that I need to do in Google. I'm done.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. And sometimes that's nice too, like put it on the to-don't list. But except GimKit, because you got to do GimKit.
It's a like to figure out thing. Like when I've got the bandwidth in my brain, which is running real low lately. I think that on some of the stuff that I look for, I'm not gonna lie, my bandwidth is so low. I literally Googled technology for interpretive mode. And I found this, yes, the Google. So this is a blog that I think is not kept anymore, but it's Passion for the Profession. And she just reminded me of like all of those things that we can do for like reading activities, like pre-reading, post-reading, that I kind of sometimes forget about, right? And she's got a couple of these on here, like a KWL creator. I feel like 15 years ago, everybody had to have a KWL for every single thing. I'm not sure if anybody has to do it now. But so some of the ideas were make predictions about authentic text, ding, 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 authentic text, brainstorm connections, authentic text, list what they already know. But it just brought me back to some of these ones that Meredith was talking about. Like, there's so many different ways that you can use technology to do the things that you're already doing, right? Like I have my kids doing a whole lot of highlighting and underlining and circling. Why can't you do that on a document that makes it a little bit easier to access? Duh. Right? Why, if you're trying to, like, I love to pull infographics. My entire world has changed when I started using infographics. I love those bad boys, right? But the kids are kind of like, oh my God, one more thing. Why not tap into whatever Twitter is called now, or Instagram, or TikTok in the language, right? Like that's how you're going to pull those kids in. And guess what? It's still interpretive. They got to figure out what's going on. So I think those are really great things that you brought in, Meredith, like ye old social media. Although I have to laugh, TikTok's not on here. I'm not a TikToker. And I know Meredith must be a TikToker. Are you a TikToker?
Kind of. I don't really like go on there very much, but I've made some, but I didn't. I wasn't even thinking about that too. And I wonder, like, the only thing that's tricky for me is like it's so fast and they don't all have captions. And like with Instagram, where you can do that see translation button and you've made it like an instant reading comprehension. TikTok, I don't know if there's any way to translate it, and it might then be over and you're like, okay, well, it was a get ready with me video. That part was obvious, but I don't know what they said.
But then I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
And I think that
I feel like
go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead and then I'll add.
I was going to say, I mean, I think Twitter can be a very dark place, but I distinctly remember so many different activities that you can pull some really great tweets online that are accessible to kids, right? Like people who are using either emojis or short words or pulling in that franglais or Spanglish or whatever is going on, right? Like, I think we shouldn't discount a lot of the social medias because we either don't like them, don't agree with it, whatever, because it's a rich source of authentic materials. Even if they're like grammatically incorrect, oh my gosh, what a learning experience that is, duh. Okay, there you go, Angela.
I was going to say, with something like TikTok, obviously you have to be considerate of how is that going to work on your school network, but TikTok will let you save that video. And so then it would almost be like app smashing. Like you could take that video, that get ready with me video, that a girl in Brussels or a boy in Mexico City did. I don't know. Do boys get ready with me's? I don't know. But maybe.
They do.
But do
They could.
take one of those videos and do an app smash where maybe you add it somewhere else that you could add those captions, or you could give them the option to slow it down. So
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can take some authentic resource and modify it for what you need. So I'm going to skip
Absolutely.
through there. And I don't even know, do you guys, when you taught, did you have kids take notes during an interpretive task? Like I do a lot of scaffolding and like, here's something to fill out while you're reading, or here's a task to do while you're
Yeah.
reading.
Same on paper.
Yeah, but on paper. And so I thought, how would you
Mhm.
use, obviously me and Microsoft don't get along, so the Evernote thing, completely foreign to me. But like Google Docs, like the things that make sense on your technological platform. How can you use, like, do you guys have ideas for how you would have kids either take notes or annotate a reading, or maybe even take notes on the listening? Like, how you guys scaffold that, or do you, or ideas?
one of the things that I've talked about that I love is a Chrome extension called Read and Write. And if you have, we have it in our district that is, Read and Write is free for teachers, but it's not free for students. But if you have it in your district as a paid thing, so if you're in my district, you do. One of the things that you can do is you can go through and do different, there's like 4 different highlighter colors. And so you just pull it up on your website, on whatever website you're on. So it could be on a Google Doc, but it could also just be on the article that you want them to read. And then they can go through and they can highlight. And so you could tell them, use, this color to highlight this particular thing, this color to highlight this particular thing, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, when they're done, they can collect all of those highlights and it will be collected into a Google Doc with what it was that they highlighted, what the things are that then they could share with you if you wanted to see evidence of their learning, if you wanted it as like an assignment. But I think that's a great way. So you could do something like the scaffold, if you were if you're watching a video, you could have transcribed it yourself and then have them watch the video and then take notes on the transcription using tools like that.
That's awesome. I don't even know that we have that here. That's worth investigating. I think Meredith had a puppy interruption. Did you get it?
Yep. Whacked right into it. It was like, wow.
Like, listen,
Yeah,
Mom,
I've seen Read and Write
over.
I know, they're like, it's over. Read and Write super, super cool. Absolutely. And I know people like Cami and that kind of thing. I like Cami too, but I have found that on Chromebooks, students get about 3 maneuvers in, and just, how the trackpad's like not great. Like there's a great TikTok that's like, oh, Chromebook, it's like a laptop but broken. Like,
Yes.
so I'm like, I like watch kids kind of like gum, and if it gets like gummy at all or whatever, and they're like, it's just like really laborious for them. So I love Cami, but I love Cami sitting on my 27-inch like Apple desktop. You know what I mean? Like there's like some technologically kind of privileged areas where you're like, my stuff's mine because I'm an adult and I can like zoom, zoom, zoom and go fast. And then you're like, guys, just use Cami. And they're all going, I hate you. Like this is the worst. But Read and Write is really, really cool. And I've seen it be very Chromebook friendly as well.
Interesting. I mean, you bring up a really good point there. There's a lot that I feel like we can do and that we understand. I know we're not digital natives, but because we work with technology,
we are
so
though.
Well, I
mean, we
argue
are
with
like
this whole notion.
if you had to type out like MS DOS and extension : / just to play freaking a floppy disk game, and we had the the dot matrix paper and like all that kind of thing, kids have no context for like any of the things. So we look at the save icon, we're like, oh, it's obviously a floppy disk. Like, come on, that part's obvious. So I think we're digital natives in deeper ways.
Well, that was, and I think that the kids that we teach, they're becoming less and less like producers with the language. They're amazing consumers, and they're amazing producers when it is something sort of like click, play, and go. But when it comes to, I think about Cami, there are steps involved to save a document in Cami. 90% of the kids would not know how to do that inherently, right? So then we've got,
because we're like, oh, go to file, click here, and they're like, wait, why would I do that? It's like, how would you not know to do that?
They don't even know that like an actual where the word file came from. Like I'm staring at my file cabinet, like conceptually this doesn't exist. So we have to be really cautious of, not cautious, but just aware. If we're planning to do a thing with technology, how is it going to look on the student side? And how are we going to facilitate that as teachers? And is it worth, to me, this is a big question. Is it worth sacrificing the language for the activity, right? Like if it takes me 10 minutes to explain it in English for a 30-second activity, yeah, I'm past that. Like that's not going to be the thing.
That's super true.
Right. And this is one that I did a lot during COVID, and I'm sure there's like 9,000 different apps, but I literally plug a whole bunch of pictures on a screen, share it with the kids, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read you a sentence. I need you to move these around in the right order. Like it's super low prep. Like take them from what I'm teaching, copy them into the kid thing, but it gives them like a manipulative thing. Easy enough. So what other apps do you, or even text to text, like here's the sentence, here's the end of it, or here's the outcome. Like I'm about to start a unit on global challenges, right? So if here's the problem and here's the effect and here's the cause, like organize them, you know, it's super low prep, easy to do for interpretive stuff.
I love the ability in slides to do grid view, and then it's like you're omniscient, seeing all of their sheets of paper, you know, sort of like as if you could do that if you were just like laying on the ceiling, like looking over. It's kind of like that. So watching them move manipulative or not, and there's no like little baggies to stuff later, or you're like, oh, I've got one, you know, Maison, you know, what set did this come out of? And everyone's like, I don't know, I have it. Like, oh my God.
Right. Agreed. And I saw this in there earlier. Like, I feel like it's an oldie but a goodie ed puzzle. It's such a great idea.
My favorite.
It's so great. If you're not using it, go steal other people's stuff and use it. Even if you don't, like I'm at a point where my free ones are full. Y'all, I'm cheap. So instead of like assigning them to kids, we do them as a whole class thing. Okay, let's do it as a class. The kids don't have to do it individually. And honestly, sometimes what we pick from ed puzzle may be too advanced for some kids. Maybe they need that teacher interface to walk them through everything. So you don't have to have an account for everything. Y'all, I had this conversation the other day. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but I was like, oh yeah, I remember when Google Earth was a thing. And literally all of the gears in my head, I was like, why am I not using Google Earth to teach?
Right.
I've got a unit about the town.
I forgot about it.
Why am I not using? I mean, it's a little clunky. Like it's the opposite of clunky. It's difficult because there's a lot of buttons, right? But like it is a tool to probably go back and investigate again, because I just think all the different ways that we could teach all of our units using some element of Google Earth.
Right.
Now the kids might get tired of it, but it's a powerful tool that I know that I'm sleeping on. I know I'm sleeping on it.
Including the fact that you can use with Google Earth, there's a feature, and I can never remember exactly how to get there. I always have to look it up, but you can actually go back in time and see what certain areas looked like for as long as Google Earth has been around. And so like you would be able to go back and see, it's like a time lapse, but reverse. And so like you would be able to go back and see Notre Dame before it burned down.
Right. Oh my gosh. And our kids are of that age. So that whole, when I was a kid, like, there you go. There's your whole unit. You know, I lived in this house. My house looked like this. Oh, that's great. I didn't know that. By the way, speaking of Google, totally random. Did you guys know if you like plot out your course, like driving directions in Google, like there's a prediction thing in there? Like it takes all the trends. I didn't know this. I was filling out a field trip thing the other day. I was like, I think it'll take about 2 hours. And she said, what time are you coming back? Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, with the time. Super nice. It's like Waze. It's like Waze and Google had a baby.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And then put it on a desktop or a laptop. And going back to the idea of authentic texts, right? So what are some things that you can do online? Because obviously we have the whole of the world on our fingertips. Movie reviews, movie descriptions, restaurant reviews, whatever we're calling tweet now. Are they tweets? Are they X's? I don't know what they're called, but there's a lot of great stuff to read there. You know, if you got to do that travel schedule, how cool is it for kids to look at an actual train schedule online, plot out plot out where they're going, do all of the things involved with that. And you don't have to have like the timetable or the old school like tickets that we used to have, you know what I mean? School schedules. This is a super, to me, I love the unit where we talk about school schedules because my kids get so mad. Why don't I have this class? They get an hour for lunch. What are you actually talking about? You get, you know, like,
and the food for lunch and the campuses, they're like, they just walk around. Like that's what they, yes, they do.
Gosh, they trust you to be human beings. Imagine that. Imagine. I know. And so I love those types of things because it's all, and you know, again, for French teachers, we can get outside of, well, this happens in France, right? Like the one that I use every year is the French school in Kyoto. Like what a culture smash that is, right? Like it's a really cool one to look up because it's easy to look up their schedule online. Like you can just do all of these comparisons that I think we didn't have when we were students. There's a lot out there. And clothing, food, all of anything that you have to do that's let's go shopping, it's all online. Use those things and don't let the kids hit translate. You guys got other things to add to read? I focus a lot on reading. I'm terrible with like finding audio clips. Audio clips are hard for me to find online. Where do you guys go for those?
YouTube, movie trailers, songs.
Mhm.
So
Or a
many
lot of
things.
recording. Like I record, they probably should have heard, especially in the last couple of years, like more of other people. But we just made like a lot of so many like in-house recordings and different.
Right.
We're so easy, just like with Moat or whatever. Like boop, done.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know
I
about
like
you, Angela. I'm the only French teacher, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't have that neighbor next door that I can be like, hey, can you record this? Like
Yeah.
that would be nice.
I like the idea of TikTok to get videos from. Also, it wasn't around when I was in the classroom.
Gotcha. It's around now, and I don't know what it is.
It is.
I know it exists.
I'll
and I know
find
I have
some
to
good
tell the
ones. I'll
kids-
find some good ones and share them with you.
I have to tell the kids all the time, get off your TikTok. Get off the tickety tockety like an old lady.
I don't
Like an old
post, but
lady.
I'm on there all the time,
Oh my gosh, I'm
and I follow tons of French people. So
Ooh.
nice.
that's what I'm
Ooh,
saying.
yeah.
I'll find some good ones and send them to you.
Please and thank you, and we will share. All right, so I think we did a pretty good job talking about the interpretive mode. I think that's probably one of the ones that are the easier ones to do, because if you're like me, I used to hate interpersonal tasks because the kids, oh my gosh, like wrangling cats. And with technology too, it's another one like, hey, how do we use this to keep them in the language and not get them distracted and have everything go haywire? So talking about how do we get them to talk to each other, and quick poll, how do we feel about interpersonal writing? Do we think this is a thing?
I think as long as we're talking about being in school, we kind of have to keep it as a thing, because if we're building towards the AP exam, they have to write that email.
Oh, true.
Then if we're looking at backwards design and we're looking at, okay, what is the thing that they're going to have to do if they make it all the way through, which that should be our
Mhm.
goal. Our goal is that every student is going to at least go as far as they can. Well, if they go as far as they can, and that's the AP exam, and the AP exam is still requiring the email. And I don't know about an IB because it's been so long since I've taught an IB, but if there's any sort of interpersonal task on the IB exam for writing, then there has to be practice with it beforehand.
So the question, Meredith, was how do we feel about the concept of interpersonal writing? Is it possible? Is it a
love.
thing?
Love.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely. Because I think
texting.
there is, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, as I say, like texting and emailing, we interpersonally write all the time. It's just going to be that delayed interpersonal, which makes sense. It's like, you used to be like, write a letter and da 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 da. And now AP has shifted where it's write an email, obviously. So I put in there one of my favorite websites, which sounds like it's going to give your computer a virus, but it's iFake text message. And then I
Yes.
put an example from our Unit 1 Spanish 1 test. So there should be like a big, after the docs one, keep going, there should be a big screenshot.
Yay.
Yeah, where even just like we formulated a conversation, now the interpersonal writing so it was like writing, but it's interpersonal, was fill in something that makes sense, so it's
Gotcha.
proficiency friendly, it's and it's differentiated because all the answers are going to be different. So that was
And
one
you
of
can
my,
start that at level 1. You can start that.
this is level
immediately.
1. This is our level 1 Unit 1 test. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
and
For sure.
there wasn't anything, we've done it before for kids with some different kind of learning, whatever, we've given them kind of just a sly little word bank off to the side, or like a term bank. So, feeding them a little bit of scaffolding, or maybe different things, but this one's just the open-ended one. Level 1 Unit 1, I just was like, oops, screenshot, done.
Let me see if we can zoom in on this, if everyone can see. Yeah, you're just filling in the links. All right, so you guys are shifting my mind, because I've always sort of been like, hey, can it actually be interpersonal if you can hit the delete button and you can edit what you say before you send it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, when we're texting back and forth, I would say that is interpersonal, and I have all of those options on here.
Yeah, same. That's life.
Agreed. All right. Mind changed. Thank you, ladies.
That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about interpersonal mode. Y'all, I love Flipgrid and my kids hate it. Do your kids love it? It
Isn't
makes no
that
sense.
funny? Yeah, mine never loved it the way that I've seen it. Seems some love it, but it was so helpful for me.
Well, and I'm like, okay, you'll stick your tongue out and take a video in the bathroom
That's right.
and post
In booty
it on
shorts.
social media for the
In
whole
booty
world.
shorts, but we can't be recording for class. Got it.
In a closed environment where only the teacher can see it. I do not understand you.
Yep.
All right. But I love that. And I know, Meredith, you want to talk about formative, your used to be boyfriend.
Yeah. Oh, we're still, listen, steady Eddie, boyfriend for life. So yeah, there's so many different like interpersonal like options you can do. So you can do that same, that delay, that to text message kind of thing, that missing response. You can have kind of a modeled conversation with pieces missing or, you know, whatever. You can also kind of fill it in so it grades it a little bit for you and you give it like some words you're kind of looking for, you know? So you're like, oh, birthday, fine, thanks, you know, and it'll take all of those words. It'll give some different, you know, to kind of help you out a little bit, just time wise as a teacher. But you can pretty much have anything interact with anything. So you could have like if it's I'm trying to think. So interpersonally, you could have that AP back and forth, like listen, now respond. Listen to the next one, respond. So they can listen to an audio, record in return. Listen to the next response, record. Now it's just like the AP test. Or they can listen to something, and to me, it's almost like interpersonal meets interpretive when you're listening to someone else's conversation and then you're deciding what comes next or what makes sense, or again like logical illogical, because
Right.
there's still like a back and forth. You're just maybe not in it, so it's almost like the different shades of interpersonal, like the different angles. Are you involved? Are you walking up? Are you eavesdropping? Then it's interpretive, but then all of a sudden you're like, hi, excuse me, I think I might have the answer. Do you, you know, whatever, like, are you inserting yourself or are you just being nosy? So I think those are all kind of interpersonal adjacent, but then you could absolutely have like them responding via audio or plug in a text thing and it's like so and so texted you this, what do you say in response? Okay, then they texted this, what do you say in response? Now it's almost like that AP task but written. So it's just, you know, flexing. You can flex kind of any muscles with any kind of question in any mode. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, I should definitely start seeing that. But just one
Eh.
more thing. I can't do it right now.
Yeah.
I see Padlet on there. Y'all, it has been a hot minute since I used Padlet, but I'm using it for my actual presentation. And I was like, you know what, little Padlet, I forgot how much I actually really like you.
Yes. Good
Because-
updates too.
Yeah, and like even if you just do the basic thing where you're adding comments on there, then it later can become an interpretive thing, right? Like I love the idea of just having it there, scrolling through it. Padlet might be something that I'm like oinking at, you know, across the fence. I love Padlet. There's all the socials, obviously, too. Like if you and your district will let you interact on social media with your students, I think that's a great way of handling it.
Yep.
And when they'll let you handle all the legalese there, like what we should and shouldn't do, check with your districts, you know.
Check with your district and be aware. So like one, I know for a fact that like Google Meet is not FERPA COPPA compliant. So definitely check with your district about that. And if all of these are just too overwhelming, there's a good chance if you have an LMS, like if you have an online platform, something other than Google Classroom, because Google Classroom doesn't do a lot of these, but pretty much any other online platform that's like a robust platform, you can do all of these in your online platform. So if all of these, if you're looking at that and you're like, oh my gosh, I just can't take one more thing, I've got too many things already, I can't possibly do another thing. There's a good chance you probably don't have to. Like our online platform can do all of these things. They're not always going to be, you know, the most fun or the most sexy, you know, but they can do it.
Yeah.
So if you're just like, I can't pay for anything, my district won't pay for anything, but I've got this, you can probably do that in your online platform.
Absolutely.
And I love like how clean it is. If you can do it in your LMS, keep it there. Like, to me, the phone is very scary. Like, I don't want interactions with kids on social media on my phone, period. Like, I don't want to open it up at all. Not that there's anything wrong with like anything that I do on my phone. It's just a road I don't want to go down.
Yeah,
right?
hard.
So if you can house everything in your LMS or on your work computer, you know what I mean? Like, I think that there's something to be said. So you don't have to be on all the socials with your kids and have them have access to you like that, and you
Yep.
have access to them, because I honestly don't want to see what they post. I've seen some of it. I'm done. I don't. So, protect yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Interpersonal writing, all of the things that we talked about, you can also do on Google Docs. We talked about text message, which brings us to presentational, which might actually be kind of the easiest mode to attack with technology. I
Yeah.
mean, it's speaking and it's writing. So what do we got? We got all of the things. I'm so jealous. Some of the things that Spanish has, like I saw garbanzo on there, and I was like, I need that in
I
French.
know.
And like
Love.
really, and dang it.
I know. So
So
good.
all of these things, yeah. All right, talk us through some of these, Meredith. How do you love to use these for presentational?
Well, these are probably also kind of controversial. Somebody'd be like, Conjugamos is not presentational. And I'd be like, I know, but also like Conjugamos has also evolved. Like we're all growing, okay? If Taylor Swift gets eras, so does Conjugamos. Like, you know what I mean? Like, come on. So like I'm like, give it a chance. Just give it a chance. Because I'm not super Conjugamos-y, but I do think your brain starts to see some pattern. I think a lot of kids get enough out of it that I know I was picturing like some of the patterns, and even as a really fast language acquirer, and just a kid who loved it and was front row, I was like, oh, that's right, those are the weird ooves, and those help me go like undo, that kind of thing. So, it's not presentational. However, could it be used then in presentational, like narrative or whatever? Sure, like practice with 30 and then pick, this is a terrible task and not authentic at all, but like pick 10 to then put together in a thing. I don't know, to write like in a bigger, longer version. I don't know. I just think anytime you're producing anything, it's at least presentational adjacent if there's no audience. So I don't know.
And I think also like I think all three of us are probably on the same page where we're like, we just don't attack grammar. We talk about language. We want kids to use the language. We don't focus on this is an ER verb and this is how you conjugate it. So I think that for folks like us who are just like, I never deal with grammar the way that we did 20 years ago, like these are good tools to sneak it in without it being the focus of your class, right? Like,
Yeah.
would I ever tell anyone I don't ever talk about conjugation because I'm a CX? No, obviously, it's just not the purpose of my classroom, right? So
Yep.
like when you get to the point where you're like, man, these kids really do not understand these endings, 5 minutes of a game, right? Like make it make sense to them.
Yeah.
Like there's a time and a place for grammar. It's just not the
Mhm.
whole time, the whole place of your classroom.
Yep.
So I think
Yep.
if you're sort of where we are in our philosophies of teaching, like this is this easy way to sneak it in, right? And I'm not opposed
Yeah.
to some Quizlet stuff. Like, yes, I want you to use this stuff, but if you can't remember the word for milk, oh my gosh, how are you going to give me a recipe for how to cook, right? So
Mhm.
take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes, let them play a straight
Yep.
up vocab or grammar game. Like it's okay,
Yep. Well, and I think dividing it up in our heads, like the technology by function, I think like when I think of technology and educational technology, I immediately compartmentalize, like, is it for teaching / presenting? Is it for organization? Is it for creativity? Is it for studying? Is it for practicing? Like those are all different functions. So if we're just like
right,
Quizlet, slides, I think that's when people go like, it's too much. And it's like, well, what are you using it for? So to me, some Conjugamos and some Quizlet for studying, or like you said, to sneak in some of that practice, like some of that rote stuff that honestly kids ask for. And I think that's
right,
the sneaky quiet part, that it's like when you're working to be comprehensible and to teach comprehensibly and like proficiency based, like all those kind of things. Well,
sure.
we don't talk enough about that, like that kids will be like, is there any kind of like pattern, and you're like, well, funny you should say that. Yes, there absolutely is a
Everything is
bit of a
actually.
pattern. Yeah, I'm like, yes. And then they go, oh, this makes sense. And they start to see some parallels. They see the exceptions, but it can make sense for a lot of learners. So I absolutely, and you don't want to get fired. John Bracey always says, rule number 1, don't get fired. Like play nice in the sandbox. You can't be like, well, I just don't understand, to your colleagues. And it's like, oh my God, do some Conjugamos. They're going to get to level 3 and their teacher is going to be a super stickler for X, Y, and Z. We also don't want to
Right.
set our students up for failure or completely invalidate our time with them by even just the appearance that they're not ready, quote unquote, especially like levels 2 to 3. That's always the
And
like, oof.
by the time they get to us, since we're all high school teachers, by the time they get to us, they're at a point where they want some structure. They want to understand why things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so to just that's the benefit that the littles have, that when you've got a FLES program, you don't have, they just do it the same way that they do their native language. But by the time they get to us, they want to understand, well, why is it
Right.
that way? Why in the 2 form does it look like that, and in the new form it looks like this? Why isn't it just the same? They want to understand. So I think that doing things like that is a good way to be like, and maybe even you do it and then you're like, okay, let's talk about the ones that you got right, the ones that you got wrong. What do you see? What patterns are you discovering on your own? And so then you're doing grammar, but in a CI style.
Ta-da.
Mhm.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love it. And there's a lot, kids writing, kids speaking, anything that you could do in your
Mhm.
classroom without technology, there's an app for that. Like,
Yep.
and I think there's a lot of power, especially in technology, that autocorrects, like those little red squiggles. I
Mhm.
think if
Yeah.
you got typing something in a language, oh no, did my internet die? Hey, rural schools and technology.
Right. Cool, cool, cool. Mm-mm.
So I mean, like that's a powerful tool where we're like, oh my gosh, you should not rely on Google Translate. Well, you know what? In this case,
Mhm.
if it teaches them the difference in anos and años, like might
Yeah,
be a good thing,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and seeing
So
like YouTube on that list and being like, what are they gonna do with YouTube? It's like, have them listen to it. Like, what do we do in life? Those functions, those tasks that mirror life. Just make a little YouTube comment template. And now it's like they're commenting on a YouTube video. You know what I mean? Like the format, if the thing feels unsafe or like you'll never be able to find something, make it and then just do it like blank or whatever. Like they can still do it written. It's just doesn't, it's just
yeah,
YouTube's the inspiration because that's life.
it is. I mean, and I think, my level threes, I'm toying with the idea of having them do like a public service announcement for our next unit.
Mm,
Oh my gosh, your school has check me if I'm wrong on this, Angela, but like if I'm putting something in like a school playlist or there's some place on YouTube where I'm like, this is restricted to be my users in my district, right?
Yep.
So then it
Yep.
becomes YouTube, but it's also a protected version of YouTube. So I
Yep.
mean, I think that's pretty powerful too, right? Like our kids love creating content and they love consuming content. So get them to be active participants in that thing in the language.
Yep.
I love seeing Google Voice on there. I'm like, oh, I haven't used that in a long time. I used to make parent phone calls on Google Voice. Like, do not call my actual cell phone, but your kid is really not doing great. Sorry, crack me up. All right, talk to me about organization because Meredith, this looks like a you slide.
it is. Will you see if yours are still shared? Can you hit like share again? Mine just went away. Your like slides just like zoomed off of my screen all of a sudden.
Uh-oh. Angela, can you see
Angela, can
them
you see
still?
hers?
I can see it.
Super weird. All of a sudden yours just went shoot and like slid away. All I can see is your pictures.
I don't know how to
I
fix that.
don't have, or just hit like share again. Can you reshare?
Let's see. I
It
can
might
hit
be
stop
redundant and it might be like, oh yeah, maybe.
and then say again.
All of a sudden they just
Share.
went zoop and they like didn't scroll anywhere. There we go. And we're back. It's so
We're
weird.
back. Look at
Yeah.
that.
All of a
That's
sudden
like
they
a
like
little IT
zoomed off to the
roll.
side, but like didn't live anywhere. There was like no tab. And I was like, okay, they're gone.
There
Yeah.
you go.
So just like that same compartmentalization of like, what's it for? So like if we're looking at tech for teaching, like especially languages, well, the first step is you got to know what you have and you have to know like how you want to use it, when you want to use it, etc. So like where am I keeping things? Where are kids sending information? Where am I, so I just put some of my favorites there for organizing.
Yeah.
And then things like authentic resources too. Pinterest is my absolute favorite. Wakelet's great too, but Pinterest is my favorite place to organize authentic resources by unit or by topic. I have tons. On Pinterest, I believe I'm either still PRHS Spanish. I might be Tech Me With You. I can't remember if I changed it or not. No, absolutely PRHS Spanish because the Tech Me With You one's blank. So I do remember that. So you can see like how I broke them down by unit and level. So it's like unit one, or level one, unit three, school. And so I have all these authentic resources that I've gotten pinned instead of, oh, that'd be cool. I'm going to use that school schedule from this school in Ecuador. Oh, shoot, where did it go? You can't start to
Right.
get excited about planning when you can't find anything. And to me, authentic
Agree.
resources and stuff that, like Angela said, bringing students to places outside of their community
Yeah.
at their fingertips all the time is so great, but not if we're like, never mind, I can't find it and it doesn't matter anyway, and getting frustrated and just kind of like, forget about it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know when Pinterest really was a big thing, but I remember probably like 8 or 9 years ago, everyone was like, oh my gosh, check out my Pinterest boards. And Leslie Gron still has amazing
Oh,
stuff
it's
too.
amazing. Yeah.
Like,
On
Yeah.
for Lang. Oh, it's so good.
yes, so good. So like, that's a great place. Honestly, that's almost better than Google to go look for something because it's just so
Absolutely. You could like control F, like get it to where it displays like all or most of her boards and just control F out of
Mhm.
the topic. And then she's got them. They're not language or level specific. It's just like a, French,
Yeah.
concept of beauty, AP, done. But all the,
So
but
many.
level friendly. Mm-hmm.
They're great.
Yeah.
Talk to me about creativity and creation.
I just the same kind of along those same lines of like when people want to make content, and I put the Apple
Mhm.
icons in there, but honestly, I probably would switch those out for like some Google ones now because I tend to do more creation and slides. And like things like that where if you want to make even social media like Instagram I put on there because you can make stuff on your story, save your story, and then it's all scaffolded, and I would do that a lot. And then my units were all like my stories on Instagram for my class Instagram were all by unit across the top, so the posts were pretty general, you can hit see translation, but the stories then were like Spanish 1 unit 4, Spanish 2 unit 6, like that kind of thing. So now I've got content that I've made, I haven't had to spend hours to do, and I was able to be a little bit creative, and they're all organized right there. So wanting to add scaffolding to images, super easy to just pop them into like Instagram as if you're going to post them and then just save. So nice.
Oh, yeah, that is really great. And I like Bitmoji on there.
Mm-hmm.
I love Bitmoji. And like when you've got the time and it works on your computer to just like put
Yes.
things in language, that's so great. I
In the
remember COVID
target
time.
language. Amazing.
Yes. I
So
remember
good.
COVID time and you'd like drop into your little classes and
Yes.
drop in a Bitmoji and the kids were like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I'm
I
like,
know. And it was like
"Oh,
fantastique. And they were like, shut up. That's so cute. And you're like,
yeah,
I know.
I totally want to bring it back. All right, cool. Y'all, I cannot say thank you enough. This has been fun. And like, this is the kind of stuff that I'm like, I love talking to other language teachers
Mhm.
about it because how many times do you go to something and you're like, oh my gosh, Google Slides. Okay, but how? How are you using it for your
Mhm.
classroom?
Yeah.
I understand the
Yep.
concept. I love picking y'all's brains about stuff. So thank you.
Same. I love
You're
picking
welcome.
yeah, because it's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Ooh, yes. Mm-hmm.
I love
And I did
keeping-
have a thing. Go ahead, Angela.
I was just gonna say I love keeping in touch with my French teacher side. So
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know.
Heck yeah.
I had an epiphany, Meredith, when you said you were like the little front row kid who loved everything. You were an acquisitionista. That's
Oh,
going to be what you are.
absolutely.
Acquisitionista.
I was all
That'll
about.
be your name.
She had to say it one time, and then finally, that's how I learned the word sponge. She would go, "Okay, a sponge, huh?" And I was like, "Say it one time," and I just loved it. I loved it. It was such
Nice.
a great experience. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you guys, look at us right on time. It is
Look at
4:58.
us, like a
I'm
bunch of
gonna get
teachers.
some. Yeah. Oh my gosh, look at us. No, yeah. And we didn't actually hate the teams as bad today. So good on you,
Yeah.
teams, for taking care of us. All
That's
right.
right.
And I'll send this out to everyone. Sorry for the technology flub. And we will see you. We have one in December planned, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. And then
You
Angela's
do.
back in January, correct? Or are you in
yeah,
December?
I am. Nope, in
Okay,
January.
cool. All right, sweet. All right. So you guys have a good afternoon. Bye, puppies.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. I'll show puppies. Where do puppies? Say hi,
Yay,
Deborah.
puppies.
Say hi,
Oh.
Deborah. Say hi. Oh, no. no
Okay,
hug.
bye, puppies. You're getting back.